Welcome everyone to today's webcast about the Program Operator Consortium, our aligned PCR EPD framework, and our intent in coming together to create the consortium, the outcomes that we hope to affect in the marketplace. We're very excited this month to have welcomed SCS Global as our newest consortium member. And when we introduced the consortium last year and then had our kickoff webcast in June and launched the website, we had said that we would be open to be adding new members. We needed a little bit of a startup period to get organized and get off the ground. But we are now fully into that period of welcoming new members, both program operators who reach out and say, yes, I like what you guys are doing. I want to be a part of a group that is promoting simpler, standardized, more useful solutions. And so not only are we welcoming organizations who are program operators to join the consortium so we can all operate in a consistent way, but we've also created our affiliate member program, which is simply to make it possible for all the stakeholders in the process involved in creating PCRs, LCAs, and EPDs to become part of this organization, to contribute to more information, better work products, more engagement of everyone who is a stakeholder in creating process rules and outcomes that benefit us all. So for those of you who are on today who fall into the category of anything other than program operators, we have a new kind of membership for you. We hope you'll reach out and learn about that and talk to us about that. And program operators, we invite you to reach out to us about joining as well. Our agenda is pretty simple today. We're just going to recap what are the goals of the Program Operator Consortium and around this PCR alignment, which is really the very first thing that we worked on as the consortium, which is at the very beginning of the process. And if we look at ultimately the deliverable of a report as the thing that goes out into the market, that's the result of a process that involves a big system. And so aligning and simplifying around the PCR process from the get-go kind of gets at the root of the system, and simplification and standardization can fall out from there. That's why we worked on that first. That's why we're focusing on that information now. But ultimately, keeping our eye on the prize, what are the effects we want to have in the marketplace? And we'll talk about those today as well, because we actually don't believe in having technical discussions without putting those in a context. Why are we doing these technical things and providing this technical information? And again, that's the value and benefits section. And at any time, if you have a question, please put it into the questions panel. I'll try to get to it, and if I don't, someone will follow up with you post webcast. So we like to say, who are we? We're for standards developers, and Sustainable Minds doesn't look a lot like the other companies. We're a software and innovation company driven by design, and it's only through putting diverse mindsets together can you build on that and really innovate. And so we're pretty excited about what we've been able to accomplish. And like I said, we are really looking forward to having more of both kinds of members on an ongoing basis. And really why we got started was just simply, too many people doing too many different things, producing too many different kinds of results, and really not helping the marketplace either create standards that everybody could use consistently to create comparable measuring techniques. And because of that, the deliverables have not yet really produced really great tools for helping decision makers make more informed decisions about what products to specify into their buildings. And we like to bring it back to the standard. This is all standards. When you bring it back to the standard 14025, right in the foreword, right in the introduction, the first page, it talks about the harmonization of program instructions, PCRs, compatibility for the purposes of ultimately creating comparability and recognizing and harmonizing all the different rules of PCR, review, verification, development, format, all those things. And what we're always going for is not only best practices, but continual improvement. This is an emerging process. I mean, it's been around for a while, but the demand, and certainly now created by LEED, has been accelerating and requiring scale. And so people are engaging, they're learning, things are changing. And so having an organization and a program that allows for continual improvement, learning, engagement, changes, but yet in a structured and integrated way, it is challenging, but it's what's called for if we're going to be successful. The other thing that we like to go back to, and this is something that Sustainable Minds really took to heart a few years ago, which was really considering the information needs of different purchasers or user groups. And then it's repeated in the standard, pay due attention to the level of awareness. And this kind of responded to our initial question, which is, why is there so much technical information in a document that's being delivered to architects, builders, and contractors? They don't ever have a chance of really understanding what all this stuff means. We're really not paying due attention. We've taken our eye off the ball. We're going to put it back. Because here's the end game. The end game is this: to help manufacturers actually make better, higher performing products that cause less stress on the environment. And so, while it doesn't say this in the standard, a Type 3 environmental declaration is supposed to have the effect of a marketing and communications tool. It's supposed to be able to convey accurate information that explains what the manufacturer is doing to make products that cause less stress, and therefore that manufacturer should be rewarded, that people should purchase those products to drive this continuous improvement. So our goals as an organization is to provide more useful transparency solutions, reduce complexity by standardizing, providing improved reports, and combining efforts so that this is all scalable. We also want to make it possible for, again, all the stakeholders who would be involved in a PCR process to be able to initiate PCRs, participate in the process, and because we're running a standardized process, any of the consortium members, there shouldn't be a steep learning curve of how to participate in what's being created every time either a new PCR gets created or an expiring one gets renewed, or new PCRs within a category where there's already a PCR but hasn't really served all the product groups well, now there's an opportunity to create more PCRs more easily, faster, that help manufacturers create better and more comparable results. As consortium members, we're simply all agreeing to operate by the same standards, technical rules with the same end state and goals in mind. That means that nothing has changed in terms of what manufacturers, which program operators, manufacturers, or trade associations choose to work with. We have nothing to do with discussing what things cost. That's between each program operator and its customers. Just none of that has changed. When a program operator joins the consortium, what they are agreeing to when they join is to use this integrated program, be aligned with this program, and participate in its maintenance and development. We built a preliminary 2 catalogs, which I'll talk more about the PCR catalog in just a moment, but we did build 2 preliminary catalogs just to get us off the ground, to be able to aggregate all of the EPDs and transparency reports that consortium members have made. You'll see the PCR catalog is for all of North American PCRs. Both have just started, and both will continue to evolve to be more comprehensive, more interactive, and ultimately really be very useful tools for anyone in the marketplace who's looking for manufacturers who are producing transparency information of any kind. And that's one of our ideas about just providing simpler, easier to use, more useful tools to the marketplace. So diving into the PCR alignment work, the framework that we're using was originally developed at Sustainable Minds with the original author being Ute Meyer, who is a LCA technical expert, known to many of you who are on today's call, has worked all over Europe and in North America, and early on saw the opportunity and the need to bring a standardized PCR program to North America, and learning from what had already been going on in Europe. And so we created the first North American 2-part PCR program. And when the consortium came together, we decided we would align around the Part A that we developed, that Sustainable Minds developed. It then went through a review cycle of the founding consortium members. There were some additions and modifications made to that Part A, so it really does represent the current viewpoints and practices of the consortium members. But the Part A is designed and had been designed originally to be updated annually, so that Q4 of every year, we're looking at what's happened in the marketplace, what's happened in the world of standards, and what do we need to be learning and creating some standards and standard practice around, so that we're all continuing to operate using best practices for that period of time without making people crazy about too many changes. So there's an annual version of Part A, and its foundation is alignment around the 1400 series, both European technical standards. It is conformant with the ACLCA guidance for PCR development. And very importantly and very differently, it provides for different formats of Type 3 environmental declarations. An EPD, which is a format that anybody can create in Microsoft Word or any other publishing tool following a set of content requirements, or a Sustainable Alliance Transparency Report, which is a cloud-based reporting tool that turns a Type 3 environmental declaration into a marketing tool to convey product information, the environmental performance information, and what the manufacturer is doing to improve. One of the other insights about creating a program that would be scalable and that could become the national standard is there needs to be a way for people to participate in its creation and oversight in a persistent way without too much change. So we kind of look at the diagram like this, that this whole program is made up of standards, people, process, and LCA best practices. So it's all starting from 14025. The tab maintains the framework and Part A. I'll talk a little bit about how each program operator creates their Part B, or the Part B component that goes with Part A, and ultimately results in the manufacturer's choice of Type 3 environmental declaration. So here's Part A. You can see it was just updated this month with a new logo, but it was updated in March of 2016 after the review of the new program operators. And again, in Q4, we'll be going into another review and update cycle. It will go out for public comment again, and then the 2017 version will be published. We're pretty excited about the tab that we've been able to put together. And from the beginning, the idea was, we want to have all types of representation of LCA experts who are consultants. So they have the experience of, hey, I've got to deliver LCAs, do LCAs and deliver LCAs and EPDs conformant with these PCRs. What's our experience of that? We want industry representatives, either from government, NGOs, certainly from manufacturers, and finally, stakeholder representation. And so when a program operator joins the consortium, they get a seat on the tab. And if they have a resource who is an LCA, who has LCA expertise in their organization, they get that seat, or they have the choice of appointing a technical expert to be their representative on the tab. And you can see that NSF and ASTM have brought two really fantastic experts to the group. And we not only have a lot of different perspectives on the tab, all of these people are connected in the industry to different working groups, different standards development, different industry groups. And so we've got a really good access and connection to all other parts of the industry, so that we can really be aware of what's going on. So a little bit just about Part A. That again, it's based on originally EN 15804 and in compliance with the ISO standards. For those of you who are on the call not super familiar with EN 15804, it's the technical standard that rules all EPDs in Europe. So every program operator, every national program operator must use EN 15804 as a core EPD, but they can add additional rules that are specific to their country or to their region, as long as they do not conflict with the core rules. So we said, look, we need the same kind of thing in North America. Let's take EN 15804, adapt it for North America, and then add North American rules. And that's how we wrote our Part A from the ground up. The current version of Part A, 2016, is in its third version. So there's been 3 public releases of Part A with updates every time. And so this idea of, look, 80% of the rules of creating PCRs are these ideas about calculation rules and report requirements. So why should that be revisited every single time if 80% of it really doesn't need to change? So Part A is intended to always cover that 80% of LCA calculation rules and report requirements, leaving only roughly 20% of that PCR to be completed by the stakeholder group specific to a product category or a product group, and allows that stakeholder group to deal expressly with the information about what they know best, which is their products. Now, we do talk a lot about North American PCRs, but the framework is designed certainly to do PCRs that provide for global reporting when the stakeholder group makes that a requirement. So we've really broken down the PCR creation and reporting process into standardized tools. This being kind of core to the standardized tools are Appendix C, which are the content requirements for an EPD or a transparency report, which are very, very, very focused on doing exactly the intent of ISO 14025, which is to make it possible to understand the environmental impacts of the product and what the manufacturer is doing to make the product better. And we are being rigorous in our limitation of content that does not meet that requirement to creep back into reporting requirements, because that's how you get EPDs that are 20 pages long, 10 pages. People don't have time for that, right? What they want is, what's the product? Give me the impact. What's the manufacturer doing to make it better? And in fact, we've seen 1-page EPDs that are absolutely conformant with the PCR and 14025. So there really is very little justification for having EPDs that are super, super long when that's not required, and a redacted, publicly available LCA is a requirement of 14025. So our transparency report is just 3 pages. It's in the cloud. It's a very structured approach. But you can create an EPD in any format that you want, any design that you like, using the content requirements in Appendix A. Now, we're really focused on continuous improvement, like I said, ongoing research and learning, and the topics that we're interested in I've already touched on, which is, well, how much LCA content should be required in an EPD? And when and why is full compliance with EN 15804 or 21930 required? What's happening? What are the stakeholders asking for? How are the reports intended to be used? So when is full compliance required and when is it not? Also focus on what content is useful to help people make decisions. And really, what are the challenges for manufacturers who are trying to create LCA capabilities internally? How are we creating that capability in those manufacturing organizations so that they can use these standards and reporting tools without the need necessarily of an expert technical person to interpret it all? But even further, digging into it, the way PCRs are done today, even the most technical LCA experts have difficulty in trying to interpret what they mean, why are they different? Every time you start a project, you have to, read a bunch of stuff, figure it out. And that's when it gets very expensive, not only in the reporting process, but in the verification process. Because that verifier, that LCA, when they're truly rigorous, and mostly they are, they're going to send it back until it absolutely meets the letter of that PCR. So every time, every single one is different. That's a learning curve. Somebody has to go up. So we developed an analysis tool. We call it our Compatibility Appendix, where we've taken that Appendix C, which are the content requirements for an EPD or a transparency report, and we've now used it to analyze existing PCRs to understand what's in them already relative to the requirements of Appendix C, so that anytime a PCR is going to be renewed, now there's a real easy way. If it's going to be renewed in this program, we can do a very quick analysis, look at what's already there, put it in the appendix, and see where, oh, well, it requires this doesn't require that. We make comparisons, make some recommendations, and the stakeholder group can go off and work on the stuff that's most important, which is the functional unit right? Do you have good use cases and rules for comparability? Are the underlying technical standards still the same, or have they changed? How do those impact reporting? This is just a quick example of we used this compatibility appendix last year to evaluate a number of different PCRs, and we actually had to use another program operator's PCR to create a transparency report. So this really kicked off the process. So all we do is, you can see, take that Appendix C. On the left side is the content list by section. And we have guidance about what the content should do to be good or successful or accepted. And then we annotate what's in the appendix, the PCR that we're reviewing, that's different or additional. And we actually did a pretty extensive deep dive into comparing requirements from EN 15804, the PCR that we were evaluating, and trying to understand why was additional stuff being asked for in this one PCR, or why was it different than what was in EN 15804. We even then went further and looked at a comparison of those to 21930, and our takeaway is that there's lots of additional content required in Type 3 environmental declarations in any in every standard and technical program, and they're all different. Sometimes they overlap, sometimes they don't, and so we created a preliminary catalog of appendices of these standards and PCRs, and have continued to create more. And so when we did our research to put together the PCR catalog, we found that a lot of these PCRs were expiring, and we found, these were the results. We actually found 51 PCRs from 9 different program operators, 14 were expiring, and a lot of differences, just all the things we've been talking about. But we took a deeper dive onto why are so many of them expiring this year, and it turns out that 10 of them were addenda to European PCRs. And these were PCRs that ULE created using addenda to the EBU PCRs to more quickly enable manufacturers to report. But the problem is that while yes, that serves some customers' needs, they aren't actually PCRs. They're addendum to European PCRs, and when you're doing addenda to somebody else's work, you don't have any control over the somebody else's work. So when we did this research, we found that in some cases we couldn't find the original PCR that the addendum was to, so there was only the addendum. We found that the original PCR had expired. The dates didn't match. There were watermark draft all over them. And while we can absolutely understand trying to be responsive to a customer and doing whatever you can, this is not a long-term solution because it perpetuates inconsistency and frankly lack of transparency. Because the bottom line was there's no apparent stakeholder involvement by North American interested parties. It was simply an adaptation of a European PCR under the kind of addendum rule. So introducing the consortium framework, now a stakeholder group, a trade organization, manufacturers can create actual real North American PCRs using North American rules and standards. They can also make them globally applicable in a streamlined way. It doesn't take long. It's not expensive. And now more new and expiring PCRs can be created in a standardized way that's transparent, where people can be involved and ultimately get us on the path of creating reports that allow for comparability. So when a manufacturer or an industry association gets ready to start the PCR process, the most important thing about selecting the program operator is their program. What is the deliverable going to be? So, and understanding the rules of that program and how that program operator operates and what deliverable you're going to get is the most important thing to understand. And further, when a PCR expires, no one actually owns that PCR. So you're not obligated to go back to that original program operator if you are the stakeholder group, or you can go back to that original program operator and request that the PCR be renewed in this program. It doesn't matter. The program doesn't actually cost any extra money. It's just about let's all do everything one way. Let's not have any more confusion in the marketplace, and let's have a way for everybody who wants to participate and finally have a system that can be smart and evolve. Again, going back to the objectives, people don't want just reports. They actually want better products. So it's our job to help make better, more meaningful, more useful reports so those manufacturers who are investing in product transparency get the benefit of making actually better products and getting the reward from the marketplace. Everybody benefits. Manufacturers, industry associations, LCA providers, AEC decision makers. And in this industry, the bottom line is the green building rating systems are the ones really that benefit, because there will be more products to award to decision makers for making greener purchase decisions, and thereby building actually greener and higher performing buildings. So with that, we welcome you to become a member. Contact us. Go to the website. We have a contact form. We're talking to all of you. And I'm checking the questions. It looks like most of the questions have been answered. There's just one that will follow up independently. So I'm going to bid you good day, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thank you.